So you're building a cheap gaming PC. What graphics card do you go with? Well, today I want to take a look at a cheap graphics card that is pretty old and actually still can perform and give you some pretty solid frame rates for a really good price. That is, of course, the RX 480 8GB card from 2016. We're going to be looking at that card today. So in case you need a refresher on the RX 480 8GB card, it came out in June of 2016, originally had a price tag to it of $230, though today you can find this card readily available on eBay, at least in the United States, for between $80 and $90, though of course that is in used shape. And this is where we get into the biggest disclaimer, in that this card has now gone through a couple of major mining booms when it comes to cryptocurrency. And it was, especially for the, I believe it was the 2017-ish boom, this was a very popular mining card because back then AMD was destroying NVIDIA with hash rates of Ethereum. The RX 480 8GB card was incredibly popular because you could pick it up relatively cheaply and it actually gave you pretty good hash rates. So just be aware, if you're buying one of these cards used, there is a very decent chance, if not a really good chance, that these cards were used for mining at some point, and of course there's no good way of checking that. Also be aware that a lot of these cards, because of their age, some of the fans are wearing out. You can buy replacement fans for several varieties of these cards, especially some of the third-party cards that have just a dual fan setup. You can get fan replacements relatively inexpensively, but if you're already spending $80 on a graphics card, another 10 or 15 on fan replacements does drive up the price significantly. And because the used market, especially for these older cards, is very compact, that likely drives you into a completely different GPU class altogether if you're willing to spend an extra $20 on a GPU. So just be aware, you may or may not get a great sample if you're going on the used market. If at all possible, obviously see if you can get a test video sent your way before you actually purchase a card, especially if you're dealing with like Facebook Marketplace. But buyer beware, these cards are old and a lot of them are showing their age. And of course, with that in mind, we'll jump over to the test setup today, which is a Ryzen 5700G paired with 32 megahertz RAM. That's a 2x16GB kit for a total of 32 gigabytes of RAM in this test setup, and we're testing a few popular games here. So let's go ahead and jump over to those test numbers to see how this older graphics card performs here in early 2023. Jumping right in with CSGO at 1080p, and this would be on generally high settings. You have here a really good average FPS of 230. 1% low is really solid. 0.1% low is still over 100, and you don't notice any sort of stuttering or anything like that in the game. So if your primary game is super fast paced and easy to run multiplayer games like CSGO, then yeah, you're going to be just fine with an RX 480 8GB card, and you'll have no problem being competitive running with a system with this aging hardware. And truthfully, the same is the case of 1440p, again with high settings here. The RX 480 8GB card handles CSGO no problem at all, and this would likely be the case with a game like Overwatch as well, if that's kind of your speed for what types of games you like to play. This is going to be a really good card for systems that are geared towards esports titles. If you're more concerned about single player games, Doom Eternal, high settings, again at 1080p, though RX 480 actually handles this game really well. Again, you have an average FPS over 100, the 1% low is over 60, and even the 0.1% low here is still over 60 FPS. So if this is the type of game that you're looking to play with the RX 480, yeah, it's going to run just fine on Doom Eternal. And at 1440p even, you're getting solid frame rates here, again with high settings. The average is well over 60, the 1% low is right at 60, and even the 0.1% low is just barely below 60. But of course, we all know that Doom Eternal is one of those titles that runs really, really well on a variety of hardware. When we move over to a tougher to run game like Cyberpunk 2077, this is at 1080p medium settings. The average is a little bit below 60 FPS, the 1% low down there at 41.8 FPS, and the 0.1% low there at 37.5 FPS. Yeah, this is definitely a playable title at 1080p on medium settings. It is definitely, though, not an optimum title. Like, if you want to hit that 60 FPS number, you might be able to do so, but you're going to be dropping settings down, and the game isn't really going to look that great. Now, if you want to play this game at 1440p, if your target is just the console 30 FPS rate, then you're good to go even at 1440p with RX 480 8GB card. However, if you're trying to get a really smooth experience with 60 FPS or even higher, this is just not going to be the card for you, as the RX 480 is just too old, too slow to run Cyberpunk 2077 at really high frame rates. Here, we should just be happy to get a playable frame rate, which, to be fair, 1440p medium settings, this is absolutely playable. Now, of course, we come back to the question of, should you purchase the RX 480 8GB card? Maybe you're building a $400-ish PC and you're looking for a graphics card in this price range. And the answer is maybe. Like, you're taking a risk on this graphics card between the potential of it having been mined on, between the potential of fans going out in it, between the potential of the GPU itself failing, because again, this is a card that is now going on nearly 7 years old. And depending on what kind of card you get, if you got like the blower style card like I have, it actually runs pretty warm, like in the low 80-degree range, even in an open-air test bench. Now, if you're getting a card that has maybe the third-party designs with 2 fans, then you should be good to go on thermals. But this card is a bit of a gamble, and that's kind of why it is priced currently on the used market the way it is. There's just a lot to consider there. Though, if you are willing to take the gamble and you're looking for a really solid 1080p rig to just get you up and running in as cheap a cost as possible, then yeah, the RX 480 8GB should be a card you consider, though you should also look at other cards on the used market that are similarly priced. Things like RX 580 8GB cards will give you a little bit of a performance uplift, and you're probably not paying much more for them, but it should at least be on your short list for cards to consider if you're willing to take that gamble. But of course, those are just my thoughts. I do want to hear from you. Comment down below. Do you have an RX 480 8GB card, especially if you're someone that bought it all the way back in 2016 at the MSRP price of $230? You're probably pretty happy with it if that's you, but let me know in those comments down below how this card is performing for you and your use case here in early 2023. That's apparently really hard to say, but here in early 2023. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe, all those things are very helpful for the channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware, and as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware. I'll see you guys in the next video.